Brand new It's in the Game podcast here on the Ball is Life podcast network, which you can find on SoundCloud, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. If you're a fan of video, you can find the video version on YouTube at the Cruise Control Podcast Network. I'm joined by, as always, my man Denny Blanco on Twitter and Instagram. I am Denny Blanco, and joined by my guy John Corrales, Reds Army _John, covering the Celtics for MassLive.com. Big Game 7 tonight. John, my man, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
Doing good, man. Doing good. Can't complain. Denny, how you doing?
Doing great. It's Friday, baby.
That's right. You know what? Let's get right to it, man. John, I got to ask you a weird playoffs, man. We're in the bubble. We're seeing things that we haven't seen before in the playoffs. But right now, we're at a spot where the Boston Celtics are Game 7 against the defending champion Toronto Raptors tonight. They were up 2-0 in the series. Toronto came back with a crazy shot by OG Anunoby in Game 3, and a classic double overtime game in Game 6. We are here tonight, John. What do the Celtics need to do tonight to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals to take on the Miami Heat?
I mean, honestly, they need to do a lot of the same things that they've been doing. Like, I think when you look at the series, the Celtics have had control of every game except for Game 5. Game 5 was the only game where they stunk for any stretch of the game. They had total control over each of. Obviously, they won the first two. They had total control in Game 3 until they let go. They had going into Game 6. You know, there are so many different things that happen in Game 6, and we can focus on, Jason Tatum throwing the ball to Nick Nurse, the way he was standing aside. We can focus on the stuff we're talking before the show. Kemba getting fouled on the last play of the game, and the NBA admitting that in the last 2-minute report. But really, in reality, the Celtics were in control of this game with 1:40 to go left in the first half. They were up 10. I'm looking at Raptors fans online on Twitter just lamenting the fact that, like, oh, we look toast, we look cooked, like it's over. Like everybody was ready to just pack it in. Celtics ease up. Kyle Lowry is awesome, best player in the series so far. Put the Celtics in the pick and roll 3 straight times, 8-0 run, boom. Next thing you know, it's a halftime lead of 4. Celtics come out in the third quarter, get outscored again, give up the lead. They give up a 6-point play. That's where the series turns. The Celtics have had these opportunities to put this series away. In Game 5, in Game 6. Now, if they, in Game 7, do a lot of the same things, they have the talent. They have the ability to beat the Raptors. Right. I would like to see, more specifically, get Kemba going early a little bit so he can be more in rhythm late. Right. I understand the box and one that they were playing on him. Find a way. I think maybe you set that screen a lot higher, or you set that screen off to the side and let Kemba attack one of the points of that box versus going down the middle of that box, and try to get him a couple of early buckets so when the fourth quarter rolls around, he can pull up and feel like he's in rhythm and make some of those shots.
All right, Denny, go ahead.
Man, I agree with everything John said. I thought it was fascinating. I haven't seen a box and one.
Nick Nurse throws everything at you.
Exactly.
Everything.
And I love it. Let me tell you, I'm usually screaming at my TV, like I'm playing either, I'm a ball fanatic, played ball in college, but I'm usually screaming at the TV while we're playing either NBA 2K or whatever. And I'm just saying, if somebody's, totally dominating you, change up the defense, see what they can do. No different than last night when Houston and LA was playing. I believe it was, I forget who was calling the game. They said, why don't you just throw a zone out? Why are you allowing the Lakers, who shoot terribly from the 3-point line, to keep driving down the lane? So when it comes to Toronto, Boston, real quick, just to throw it back to you guys. I'm shocked that, I'm just surprised and happy that Nick Nurse decides to change up the defense, and I think that saved them. His rotation is very short, which to me, these guys were gassed. 2 OTs. These guys were gassed, and Gasol and Ibaka. These guys weren't really playing, and I don't know if that's based on them not being able to cover the 3-point line, and them not being able to recover very quickly on pick and rolls. Maybe that's the reason. But if I'm going to take a guess tonight who wins, I'm picking Toronto based on championship
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'm picking Toronto based on champs. And one last thing, Kyle Lowry, I was off of Kyle Lowry for a long period of time after he won the championship, and this year I have to apologize. Kyle Lowry is a baller now, so I am convinced.
Let me just throw this at you though, and look, picking Toronto in a game 7, like there's nothing wrong with that. Like they clearly have been here before. They've won a championship. They've I want to say they've overachieved. That's just based off of my expectations. But look, they trust each other. That's one of the biggest things. They trust each other. They trust Nick Nurse. Why? Back to your point, Denny. Why wouldn't the Rockets go zone against the Lakers versus why do the Raptors go zone in all these different zones? Because the Rockets don't play zone during the regular season. And if you don't play zone during the regular season, you're going to ask them in the middle of a playoff series. Like, yeah, you on 2K, you can say, oh, zone, and they play zone well.
Right.
You play a zone against the Lakers when you haven't played a zone, somebody's going to screw up, but they're going to pick it apart. The thing with Nick Nurse and the Raptors is they've been doing this all season. They did it last season. They know how to do it. They know how to switch from man to a box and 1 to a triangle and 2 to a 2-3 zone to a matchup zone to a full court press. Boom, boom, in consecutive possessions, because that's how they play. And that's what makes Nick Nurse a good coach. And that's what makes Toronto a dangerous team, because they've been doing this and they can throw these looks at you. And why the looks work, a zone in the NBA is trash. If you know how to, if you see it, you go, oh, zone, I'm going to attack this, boom, 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 because NBA players are too good. But if you can throw that zone at them and get 2 or 3 possessions where it's disruptive, you win 2 or 3 possessions here, 2 or 3 possessions there. You win 2 possessions in each quarter. You've now won 8 possessions, and that can swing a game. Right. So that's why if you're picking Nick Nurse or you're picking Toronto, that's where the trust lies, and that's where they have the advantage.
I'm just surprised that Denny, a native New Yorker, is going against Kemba Walker tonight.
How dare you? How dare you?
Not just a native New Yorker, a native guy from the Bronx. You're going against Kemba tonight. Just
and you're taking a Philly guy.
Wow.
You're taking a Philly guy.
Kemba, not only from the Bronx, not only
you're going to get your card pulled, man.
Absolutely. Right. Not only from the Bronx, African as well, just like I am. Hey, listen, I love the guy. The guy's awesome. But if I had to choose between the teams, just looking at the tea leaves, looking at what transpires, looking at how Boston creates their offense, and then obviously John mentioning the ability of Nick Nurse to raise his eyebrow and have a defense changed, I think is the key. That's why I'm picking overall Toronto. I love me some Kemba, I always will, but sorry, bro.
I'm going Boston tonight. I'm ride or die with Kemba. I think they I know Toronto has the championship experience. I get that. They were also in a Game 7 last Eastern Conference Finals semis against Philly. But I think Boston's going to pull it out tonight. And now 2 things, John, that we're not talking about. One, the fact that Toronto is in a Game 7 without Siakam really playing well, and the fact that there is no Gordon Hayward for Boston. So do those 2 things kind of cancel out? Is Toronto can Toronto get over the hump if Siakam gets to play better? And if Gordon Hayward was playing in the series, do you think Boston would have won this a long time ago?
Yeah, I mean, if Gordon Hayward was in the series, I think it's a much different series, because now instead of Brad Wanamaker or Grant Williams, you're playing Gordon Hayward in those minutes. And like down the stretch in Game 6, let's pretend everything goes exactly the same. But down the stretch in Game 6, Toronto goes small. Instead of Daniel Tice out there, you put Gordon Hayward out there. And now Pascal Siakam, instead of guarding Daniel Tice, who can flare out and spot up and is okay, now you've got to guard a Gordon Hayward who can. No one on the Boston Celtics has run more miles during the games this season than Gordon Hayward, according to the player tracking data. So that means Siakam would have to chase Gordon Hayward all the way around the floor, flex cuts, floppy action baseline, having to make decisions. That stuff is going to be a lot harder for him to guard. And that's why, by the way, I think that the small lineup didn't work in Game 5, because the Celtics had Brad Wanamaker on there, and it was another guard. They went 3 guards. And having Daniel Tice out there added a dimension. I mean, he was out there catching lobs, so you don't have that when you have Wanamaker on the floor, but also Wanamaker was able to break them down and defend. So it's a little bit of both. And I am afraid of the Siakam game because he's been neutralized. I am afraid that there's going to be this one game, and there's only one game left for him to figure it out. And so that is definitely, from a Boston perspective, a fear that I think they should have. But at the same time, the stuff that has been working against Siakam hasn't changed. The fact that Jaylen Brown is out there defending his ass off has not changed. So the Celtics' defensive plan has worked pretty well, but at the same time, Siakam has missed some bunnies. So we'll see how that plays out. The Celtics aren't getting Gordon Hayward back, so I can't say it cancels each other out. If Siakam, if the Celtics advance, they may get Hayward back in the middle of the conference finals, but he's not playing in this game. Siakam, if they figure it out, I mean, it's up to him. It's really up to him. He's missed some shots that are makeable, and if he makes some of those shots that are just the ones that are makeable, even with Jaylen defending him really well, that could be a difference maker.
Right.
At the same time, though, Jason Tatum hasn't played very well, and they didn't get Kemba Walker going, so you can easily cancel Siakam out by Jason Tatum having a Tatum game and Kemba Walker having a Kemba Walker game, and now you've not only canceled them out, you've outdone them.
All right, Danny, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, with Siakam, I think it's a matter of he's missed a lot of bunnies. I don't know if it's about rhythm, but he's been off, and I don't know if it's a lot of the plays I saw him run. He would catch at the free throw line, and try to do it in and out, and then try to back his man in, and usually somebody's already conversion from the other side. So when it comes to Hayward, yeah, I mean, in terms of neutralizing, it's a matter of we need one from Siakam, just one game. Everybody else is playing well.
Yeah,
we just need just one game. Just give me 20 and 7. That, I mean, really, it's what I need. 20 and 7.
So
go ahead, please, John.
No, I want to ask you this though. Now, to me, having just said I'm worried about the Siakam game, also, how does Siakam get those 20 and 7? The 7 is obviously like, okay, but you can get 7 rebounds off of free throws. You can pad your stats off of free throws. But how does he get those 20? Is he getting them in the post? Is he backing somebody down? Because I will trade Kyle Lowry drives for Siakam post-ups all day long. And if he gets 20 points on 18 shots and half of them are post-ups, then the rest of the team is not going to be in rhythm. And Fred VanVleet's not going off and Kyle Lowry's not going off. So if that's how he gets them, then I'm happy to say, fine, post up all you want all day long, as long as the things that have killed Boston, Lowry first and foremost, VanVleet, Norm out there shooting, Anunoby shooting, like those things. Those guys are the ones. If Siakam is taking away from the rhythm of those guys by searching his own offense, if he comes into this game is like, okay, Pascal, this is where you shine. This is where Game 7 legends are made. I'm going to go out there and do it. But you take away from the other guys in the team, not going to work. But if they get him catching the ball on the move and he's scoring in rhythm, then that's going to be a long night for Boston.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Good point. That's what I'm looking at. I'm not looking at for him to come down every possession and try to take away from VanVleet and Lowry, because that's what obviously Boston's expecting them to do, and it takes away shots. No, I want him to get more shots in the open transition. I want him to get more shots, offensive rebounds, scoring like that within the offense, as opposed to trying to demand the ball, because in the offense he's getting shots. He's just missing them.
Right. Yeah. If he's putting back offensive rebounds like they did in Game 5 that they had a ton of offensive rebounds, if that's happening, then that's the Celtics are going to be in trouble.
I think it really comes down to Brad Stevens against Nick Nurse. I think that's the main event right there. Who's going to outcoach who? Nurse has the experience of winning a title. Brad Stevens has gotten to a conference finals a couple years ago against the Cavaliers, so they both got that experience, but. I don't know, man. It's like, listen, Kemba could have a really big game too. Like, it's somebody has to stand out. You mentioned Tatum hasn't really been having a good series, but he can ball out and get you 35 tonight. Siakam has been kind of dormant so far. Kyle Lowry stepped up big time in Game 6. Van Fleet has been playing well all year, so just like, you know, these two teams have been in a Game 7 before, if I'm not mistaken. So, should be interesting, man.
One last point before you moved on. One last point. Did you recognize who was Kyle Lowry guarding exclusively the last 2 minutes, and I think literally into both OTs? Who was Kyle Lowry guarding?
Was it Tatum?
Tatum and Brown.
Ooh. Oh yeah, he did. Yeah, Brown had that post up and he stripped him. Actually, goes down as a block shot. Which
really? It's not. It's a strip. It's a steal. But I noticed in going into the OTs strictly, and then I didn't see any post play from Jalen or Tatum. They were trying to pick and roll him, and I'm just like, no, he's 6 foot. You guys are 6'7". You guys should see him go straight into the post. Don't even try to shoot over him. Don't try to back him down. No, you can't do that. But it's very interesting. Kyle Lowry's playing some great, and Van Fleet, based on their size, playing great defense.
Yeah.
So Jay, I know you covered the Celtics, but let's keep the bias aside. But Boston or Toronto, which is really the better matchup for Miami in the conference finals?
As far as who should Miami want to play, I would say Miami should want to play Toronto, because they've got length and they've got shooting. And Toronto is, and we've seen it with the Celtics benefit, Toronto's defense has been geared to give up corner threes, but then try to contest. The Miami is one of the best 3-point shooting team out there right now.
Yeah.
I would say that Miami would not want to compete with Boston's length. Boston has the length and the defense to play into Miami's weaknesses. I think Toronto's style of defense, as confusing as it may be, I think Miami would want to see them. And also, if Toronto still continues to shoot poorly, then Miami's the other team that plays zone very, very well. And they can say, all right, fine, we're not going to let Lowry drive and get into the middle of the lane. I think they're going to make it a lot more difficult for that and force them to start shooting. And the other matchup that, as I'm thinking off the top of my head here, Bam Adebayo against Ibaka or Gasol is going to be a mismatch. Much more of a mismatch than anything the Celtics can throw at them, because he can do the things that Robert Williams has succeeded against at a much higher level while still defending and not screwing up his defensive rotations. And, that's just a lot of pressure defensively. So I think Miami would beat Toronto. I think Celtics Heat would be a classic.
So are you more surprised that Miami is in the conference finals, or the fact that of how they got there, where they just sweep Indiana, they look really good against Milwaukee? I know Giannis got hurt, but Miami looked like to be the better team on the floor. So are you surprised about Miami?
I mean, I'm as surprised as everyone else that Milwaukee went down like they did.
Yeah.
They really just fell apart. And there's just a strong possibility of weaknesses getting exposed in any playoff series. I shouldn't even say possibility, probability. Like, if you've got any weaknesses, it's going to happen in the playoffs. It's going to come out in the playoffs. And the moves that Milwaukee made, I know everybody says the same thing, but not having Brogdon and that Brogdon move that seemed to be like, oh, it's okay. During the regular season, felt like, oh, that was okay. In the playoffs, that really showed itself to be a mistake, because Brogdon was the guy who could create shots without, in the wake of Giannis's presence. And Giannis last season, the number one guy he got assists on was Malcolm Brogdon. No one got more assists from Giannis than Malcolm Brogdon. And to take that guy away was taking away a security blanket for Giannis. And during the regular season, I just retweeted something from Bob Myers, where regular season basketball is so different than playoff basketball, because in the regular season, everybody comes into a game saying, I'm going to do what I do best. And if you can stop it, you stop it, whatever. Everybody's just trying to do their own thing. In the playoffs, they're preparing for you. You're the focus. And when you can be game planned, that's a problem. So we saw flaws in Giannis's game, where he definitely has to develop that jump shot and become more of a threat from as a jump shooter, and we saw that the guys that they surrounded him with weren't really able to step up and help him in key moments.
All right, we got a few more. All right, before we let you go, Jay. Danny, go ahead.
Yeah, listen, with Milwaukee, it's a whole bunch of nonsense with Milwaukee. John, I picked Milwaukee to go to the Eastern Conference, the finals. I picked them to go to the NBA Finals. I picked them to go to the NBA Finals.
Why wouldn't you?
And I knew Giannis's jump shot wasn't as good. I just knew it got better.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, you have three guys, if I'm not mistaken, I looked at the other day, that are on the all defensive team. You wouldn't think that coming into the playoffs. That's number two. Number three, I'm totally disappointed in Eric Bledsoe. What is going on? It just seemed like he just totally. I mean, don't get me wrong. Middleton's going to have your off games, and everybody's going to pitch in here and there, along with Giannis. But it seemed like Eric Bledsoe came bubble time. He was just MIA.
Well,
lastly, sorry, one last thing. Coach Bud.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coach Bud, listen. I'm sorry. I don't like to call for no one's jobs, but it's looking real shaky, baby. It's looking real shaky how you just allow a team that good to just go down in flames.
Mm-hmm. Two 60-plus win teams that didn't make it to the finals with Bud, with his Hawks team. I forget what year that was. With Al Horford.
Yeah, but I didn't expect that Atlanta team to go to the finals. I knew they had a great record, but this team, based on their defense, based on the two-time MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, I said it's the JV East. There should be no way. But
they like when you say, "Oh, I'm disappointed in Eric Bledsoe." Like, are you really? Like, isn't this kind of what Eric Bledsoe does? Like, this is not unusual, which is why everybody now we get to relitigate that Malcolm Brogdon deal. Like, oh, okay, we kind of thought this was how it's going to go,
right?
But like, oh, you picked Brogdon over Bledsoe, huh? Okay, look, if we're talking about like these personnel decisions, that decision right there, to me, if we're looking at Giannis and his future and what's going to happen, that's a decision to me that like is iffy. You took away not only the guy that Giannis passed to the most for his assists, you took away a guy that created. You made this decision based on money, and you said, hey, for what Malcolm Brogdon wanted versus what we could have spent that money on, Giannis is sitting there like, okay, we had a player that I really liked and I worked well with, and you decided to make a financial decision, and it blew up in my face.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now he's up for this extension. I think he still signs the extension, but now, instead of signing a 5-year extension, like, all right, thanks, I'm going to sign it, I say, sign it, but give me an opt-out in year 2 or year 3.
True.
Because, I'm still going to get my money, but I'm going to give myself an out in case you guys continue to make these Malcolm Brogdon-esque decisions based on financials that – but look, it's a small market team, and that's what they face. Mm-hmm. That's the problem that they face. It's the problem with a star in a small market. If they continue to do that, then I think Giannis has to at least protect himself and give himself that out.
Reminiscent of OKC and Kevin Durant.
Right. Look, and it's that's the exact playbook. The Durant, the LeBron playbook. You give yourself the out, even if you opt out and you're like, okay, we're close, I'll sign a 1+1 and then another 1+1. And look, does that put pressure on the front office? Hell yeah, it does. But what you guys know, when you exert pressure on someone, they're either going to crack or thrive. And you need to know if you're in a situation where the people around you are going to crack or thrive. Mm-hmm. And look, we can say that about Giannis too. But he's still the star, and you put the right pieces around him, and that's a completely different series. It's a completely different team. So he needs to exert his own pressure on his front office and say, all right, like, I'll trust you. I'll give you the time, the chance to do it, but you have to understand that you're working against the clock, and I'm not going to make you like go nuts now. Like, don't do something stupid now to try to keep me. I'll sign this, but I'll give you a few years to like figure this out. But if you can't figure this out in a few years, I got to figure something out for myself, because legacies are judged on championships.
Last point. Well, when CP3 goes to Milwaukee next year, there'll be a way better.
Oh, goodness.
Look, that might be a move. That might be. I don't know how they do it though. I don't know how they do it. That's the thing. It's gonna have to be like a 3 or a 14 deal. It's gonna have to be super, super complicated because of the financials. And Milwaukee, part of the problem that Milwaukee has is financially, they're not exactly in the greatest position to be making moves. So if they want to get CP3, look, a point guard, a leader, a decision maker, a guy who can hit those shots and set up Giannis, great. He probably would thrive with them, but he makes $44 million. How do you trade for $44 million, especially in a situation where the cap isn't going to go up to 115 like it was 116 like it was supposed to? It's probably going to stay at 100, 109. So you don't have that extra $7 million in cap space to play with. It's going to be even more difficult.
Listen, man, Jay, I know you got to run. Check out John on Twitter at RedsArmy_John. Great work for MassLive.com. John, thank you, man. I appreciate it.
Appreciate you having me on, guys. It's been fun.
Love, John. Later.
All right.